Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about Saturn transiting the fourth house in a natal chart. Now, on average, Saturn will traverse a house for approximately 2.5 years. However, if your house size is a little bit larger than average, then it will be in there for a little bit longer duration. If your house size is a little bit smaller than average, then Saturn will be in there for a little bit of a shorter period of time. Well, anyway, people, first thing I look at when Saturn transits one's natal fourth house, it could be a time where you might have to combat some restrictions and limitations as far as your home life goes. In general, I think that this could restrict a possible move or transition as far as moving. If you're trying to move, you might encounter some delays. At the same time, though, there are instances when you may wind up moving in it, like with me. When Saturn was last in my fourth house, I had moved a number of times. I was actually homeless in that period. I'm not saying that everyone that experiences that transit will wind up in that dilemma or predicament or what have you. But I think what happens is sometimes if one is not always responsible in matters pertaining to their home and family life, then they may wind up having to move as a result. And if you're paying something that maybe your rent is too exorbitant and you realize you're going over your means, for example, for some people in spending more on your home, whether it's a rent payment, a mortgage payment, or just a general upkeep, it may force you to wind up moving and making that transition. Now, what this is about too, Saturn is about responsibility, and it could indicate that during this time you might take more responsibility in matters pertaining to your home and family. It could indicate in some cases you may even have to wind up taking care perhaps of a debilitated or sickly family member. Now, this could be a time also when you look at Saturn in the fourth house, okay? Well, the fourth house can be about our roots, our heritage. So this could be a time where you might, if you procrastinated in trying to find out more about your roots and as far as your heritage, this could be a time where you might do some serious investigation and looking into this. And you might start this process perhaps near the beginning time when Saturn enters your fourth house, and maybe this goes on for some time until maybe the latter part of the transit in your fourth house. This could be a time too where you could be looking at some of your traditions and what's positive and what's negative, and doing some, as far as there might maybe some actual restructuring of this. There might be some home renovations you may be doing during this period. There might be, as far as maybe making your home, maybe some kind of home improvements. You might even wind up downsizing your home. If you do move, you may move into a little smaller place. Maybe it's more affordable. This is the time when Saturn transits the fourth house. There's another thing to look at. It could be indicating that fourth house is about our emotional security. So this could be a time of, as far as that responsibility toward it and restructuring of it, perhaps the things that weren't making you emotionally secure. Maybe this is the time where you discard them and you start working on building things for yourself, whether it's interests or things of something you might enjoy, things that make you feel more emotionally secure. It could be acquiring things, it could be other things as well. Whatever it is for your emotional security, this is the time where you might start the rebuilding of that. And the fourth house could also be about our inner foundation. It could be a time where you might be doing some rebuilding, restructuring, revamping as far as that goes. And the thing too is when you look at Saturn transiting your natal fourth house, Saturn can be, what's interesting is that Saturn can be about the father. And if your father is alive, it might be that time where maybe he figures more prominently in your home and family life than usual. I mean, fathers in many instances are going to figure strongly, but this could be a time where that father or father figure might come out and figure even more strongly than usual in your home and your family life, to some more so than usual. And what's interesting is that the fourth house, at least I associate it with the less dominant parent. It's often the mother. So it could indicate there might be some restrictions and limitations in matters with your mother, but at the same time, Saturn being representing, Saturn is connected with the father, so Saturn in the fourth house, that might indicate there might be an increase in that relationship, I think, with the father. So really, that it makes it a very interesting transit. And Saturn, and misconceptions that Saturn can be very negative and that's all this, but Saturn can have some positives because it's about restructuring. And keep in mind too that Saturn is about authority figures. So in some isolated cases, like say if you haven't shown your responsibility toward your home, I think in some, and even though the cases might be minuscule, the percentage, you might have somebody of authority coming to your home and saying, well, this needs to be taken care of, such as somebody that may have a home that might be disheveled or might have some unsafe living conditions, such as mold growing, a strong amount of mold growing, for example, in general unsafe conditions. So those are some things to look at with this transit. Now, anyway, it's also important to look at the aspects, if any, that are made from this transit to your natal planets and points, as this could impact the transit. Let's say, for example, that Saturn transiting your natal fourth house is making a sextile or trine to your natal sun. Well, this may give confidence in your nature without being overly arrogant or egotistical in taking care of responsibilities, and not being overconfident in this. And being in the fourth, this could be related to things in the home and things that are family related. Now let's take another example. Let's say that transiting Saturn in your natal fourth house is making a square, inconjunct, or opposition to your natal moon. Well, this could indicate that responsibilities may conflict with your emotional needs at this time. And being in the fourth, this could be tied in to home and family life. And anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for Saturn transiting the fourth house in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be dissertating and talking about Saturn transiting the fifth house in a natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.